Alright, hello, and welcome to another video. So I've been playing some Crucible League. I know I've been posting a ton of videos lately, but yeah, I'm still playing POE, been playing quite a lot of Crucible as well, and I wanted to just make a quick video going over, well, quick, it's probably going to be a while, but I'm gonna quickly just post it rather, make a video covering what the character that I've been playing at Crucible is so far, and we're about almost exactly 2 weeks into the league right now, I think, so we can make a quick check-in to see what my progress is. So I've been playing Tornado Shot. It's, you know, it's a seemingly somewhat turned into a bow league. Everyone's doing a bow build of some kind, it seems like. And I'm no different. I used to play a lot of bow builds back in the day in like Essence League or whatever. That was a long time ago, but and that was really cool. I quite enjoyed those. I think my preferences for build-wise now have moved past bows a bit. This is not my favorite build ever. It's a bit too squishy for my liking, but it's been fine, certainly for the stuff I'm doing anyway. But yeah, let's go over exactly what I've been doing. So it's a standard cold conversion tornado shot. So we have a physical bow and we're scaling cold conversion through the gloves and through the Cold Master here, giving us 100% physical convert to cold, and we want to do that because that makes us able to use Heat Shiver, and Heat Shiver has not been touched, in fact, since last patch. It is still as good. It still basically doubles your damage as long as you are freezing an enemy, and actually more than doubles it, and that's really strong. It also lets us use Trinity for basically free, and that's really cool. Otherwise, yeah, it's a sort of standard Omni build. Figure, let's just maybe go over the tree first. Maybe that makes sense. So this is the tree. I'm sure this is nothing new to anyone who has been looking into Deadeye or Ranger builds in general this league. All the trees look very similar. Like if you've been playing Lightning Strike, for example, this is almost identical to the Lightning Strike tree because the two builds are just that similar, but I'll go over sort of slightly different things that I've been running. Not that anything is like super crazy different, but these are my identities first of all. So we're running Focal Point, Gathering Winds, Endless Munitions, and Ricochet. Pretty standard. Usually what people do then is they Forbidden Flesh and Flame Far Shot. Now I used to do this, or well, actually Forbidden Flesh and Flamed Focal Point and then just spec'd into Far Shot, because that was cheaper. However, I moved away from that because, as you can see, what I wanted to end up doing is I wanted to use double inspired learning. So the way I'm currently farming currency PoE is I'm running the Wandering Path 8 mod map strategy, where you get corrupted at 8 mod maps of Crimson Temple, and you run a bunch of Strongbox Sextants, and you just farm Apothecaries, basically. Similar to what I did last league, but obviously the exact method I used last league has been nerfed, since we can no longer do the whole Harvest Perma Sextant thing. But yes, and in those maps, Inspired Learning, or in general, just Headhunter effects are really strong, and obviously this is a build that scales super well with Headhunter, or, you know, Headhunter-like effects like Inspired Learning, because we are converting from Fizz. There's a bunch of rare mob mods that also give you Fizz as extra of an ailment, so having a bunch of Fizz on your build is very helpful for that, and makes you scale your damage crazily. So Headhunter buffs are really strong, and for Crimson farming, especially 8 mod farming, there's a ton of mobs on the map, so Headhunter-like effects are really good. Now you might be asking why I'm not running Headhunter. As you can see, I'm running a Mageblood. I tried Headhunter out. I thought Headhunter would be better for the longest time. I just initially farmed a Mageblood because those were a safer investment, because they tend to rise more predictably in price, rather than Headhunters, which I've seen them in the past actually drop in price from you know, the first week of a league. I have tested out now after I've gotten some currency, so I did buy a Headhunter for a bit and try that out, and some maps it's certainly way better than Mageblood, and some maps it just feels way worse. I ended up preferring just the consistency of Mageblood, but then I really wanted the Headhunter buff, so double Inspired Learning actually is a pretty good proxy for having a Headhunter. You get a very similar sort of mapping experience, just due to how many buffs and stuff you get. I'd say a single Inspired Learning I don't think would be enough. I played around with that for a bit as well, and you didn't really notice it. But 2 is actually quite good. So I've been happy with the setup for Crimsons, especially 8 mono Crimsons, where you need a bit of extra power. So this has been good. In order to do this, I had to drop some nodes. So you can see most of the Ranger builds or Tornado Shot builds tend to run double cluster jewels. So the large cluster you see here, where you have Martial Prowess, Feed the Fury, and Fuel the Fight, they run another one of those down here, and a similar setup with the mediums where you get Repeater and Eye to Eye. These are very, very powerful damage nodes. You get like 6-ish% damage on average per node here, which is quite a bit above average, so those are quite strong, and usually that's what people use the extra passive points on down here. However, I am not running that because I needed the extra skill points for my inspired learnings. And because I'm not running the extra cluster jewel down here, I have 2 fewer jewel slots, which meant I had to drop the Forbidden Flesh and Flame jewel, which means we don't get far shot, and also that means that instead I'm taking point blank. I'd say you probably always want one of these two, far shot or point blank. Now, far shot in theory is better than point blank, quite a bit better in fact. I will say though, in maps like Crimson Temple, I don't think far shot is that insane. I just don't think your projectiles are going to reach that high of a travel distance to make far shot truly at its full potential like you would in a map like, say, Dunes. In say, if you're doing a bunch of Dunes farming, I'm sure far shot probably has mostly, like, you always get for, you know, the max effect of far shot, which would be then very strong because far shot goes up to what, 60% more damage, which is very powerful compared to, you know, point blank's 30. But in Crimson Temple, which is very you know, a map of very narrow corridors and shit like that, I just don't see you getting the full value of far shot ever. So I don't think the giving up of far shot in favor of point blank is actually that big of a cost for the content I'm doing. But again, that all depends. If I wasn't running these 2 inspired learnings in my tree, I would be running a Thread of Hope Large here. What a Thread of Hope Large does in this slot is it lets you grab this Master Fletcher node and this multi-shot node and then a bunch of other nodes around. It's actually a very good spot for it. And it saves you a lot of, I mean, only these 2 nodes alone save you 6 full passive points because these travel nodes here are pretty weak alongside these, which are also pretty weak on their own. So there's a lot of points saved and you can get a bunch of cool nodes. Like you get Primeval Force here for free, which is very strong, and Damage node, and there's a bunch of other stuff you can get with the Thread of Hope Large. I know a lot of people like to run a Timeless Jewel here, and those, I would say I would only use a Timeless Jewel in this slot if it's like really good, like if you get like 5 double damage nodes or some shit off of it. If you're only getting a few, I'd say just run a Thread of Hope because you're saving so many passive points with a Thread of Hope here. It's really strong, and I just would recommend that. Otherwise, we have the other Thread of Hope here, which is a massive one, which again, it's a classic bow one. People have been running this forever. Lets you get a bunch of cool shit around here. You can also get aura effect, some reservation here if you want. There's some attack speed here, all these good nodes here, some life nodes. You know, I would be able to grab this if I wanted to, but I want the master here, which lets you invert enemy resistances. It's a very strong node. So I had to spec these points in order to do that. Some other differences you may see in this tree compared to other Tornado Shot builds is I'm actually taking Wind Dancer. I found this node to be quite impressive when you have a bunch of evasion, and this currently my main defensive layer is just straight up evasion and spell suppression. It's not like, I mean, look, bow builds are never going to be super tanky, especially not with a tree like this. There are ways you could make this character quite a bit more tanky. In fact, I was for a while running a Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Wind Ward, which I was actually quite impressed with. You get quite a bit of damage mitigation with this. It was not a bad combo, especially considering how cheap those jewels were. But again, I don't have the jewel slots for any Forbidden Jewels right now, so I can't be running that. But yes, this is not a super tanky build or anything, but it's tanky enough to where I mean, I did take it to actually 5-wade from 99 to 100, but 299 I just leveled naturally in Legion Dunes when I was farming my Mageblood initially in the league. So basically, I didn't die much there. I would say if you're running 8 mod Crimsons, those are quite deadly, so you can probably expect to die once every other map or so. Potentially, depending on the mods you get. Sometimes more, sometimes less than that. So yeah, it's not a super tanky build by any means, but I mean, it's like we're running at like 30k evasion right now, and it's been pretty good. It certainly is a comfortable build to play, no matter what. But yeah, Windows I've been very impressed with, especially if you got a bunch of invasion. I think this helps quite a bit. As for how I leveled this build, I used Rain of Arrows until like close to the end of the campaign, and then I actually immediately switched over to Tornado Shot and just been playing that ever since, and it's been super fine. I know people don't really consider Tornado Shot to be that early of a skill to use. You usually swap it later, but I did it early and it was totally fine. I had no issues. Round 3 similar to this, with a Wind Dance suppression cap and all that, and I even felt pretty tanky doing the campaign, and it felt super fine. I would say if I were to do it right now, I would probably level as Lightning Arrow and then maybe just run Lightning Arrow early on, because that skill, especially with Veg and Cascade, looks really fun, and I think as a mapper, that skill might just feel better. I mean, I think your ceiling with Lightning Arrow is a lot lower than Tornado Shot, just because of the mechanics of the skill. But I think it's just a better mapping skill in general, and it's just going to feel better to play. So I'd probably maybe just use that at the start if I was to level it again. Luckily, I'm not, though. As for the Ascendancy, I know, so here's the thing. Usually, I see people in build guides mention that it's good starting Raider and then respecking to Deadeye later on, because Raider has more quality of life early. Now, I am pretty against this idea, so at least if you're doing a League start. If you're doing it post-League start where you have a bit of currency, it doesn't fucking matter. That's fine. It's just that when you're doing a League start and 40 regret orbs to respec your Ascendancy is actually a big cost. I just don't think it's worth starting Raider, because the things you can get from Raider that is the quality of life that you're looking for is extremely easily solved if you just ascend a Deadeye as you're leveling. So basically, what you're getting as a Raider, right, is really easy suppression cap and really easy ailment immunity. And then some speed off of Onslaught or whatever, but you get speed off of Deadeye as well with the Tailwind node, so I sort of consider that a mute one. But yeah, spell suppression cap and ailment immunity. Now, these things are both things that are extremely easy to solve on a Deadeye. All you need to do is run Purity of Elements, which I'd say, as right now, whenever I level a new character, I just throw Purity of Elements on during leveling, because you get so much free res, and it's just like an easy way of staying res capped while also getting free ailment immunity. So that's why an early leveling aura, I'd say Purity of Elements is like perfectly fine, and it's just, that solves that issue completely. And for the suppression cap, you just get that on the tree. You just like take the nodes here, take, you know, this full life node here, and then take some nodes down here, and you're fine. You got suppression cap just fine, and you don't need a ton of damage nodes as you're leveling anyway. And you get that, and then you suddenly get all the advantages of a Deadeye or of a Raider for free, and then you get all the damage shit from the Raider, which is like the chain, the extra projectiles, the tailwind. Like it's just, I think there's almost no reason to ever go Raider as you're leveling up in League start scenario. I just don't see it. I just don't see an advantage to it. I ran Deadeye from the start. I had no issues. I barely died during leveling at all. Maybe like once or twice during leveling, but I mostly just started. I mostly started feeling squishy during red maps. Before that, I was super fine. So yeah, if you're doing leveling, if you're leveling this character and it's a League start scenario where you don't have a lot of currency and 40 regret orbs is kind of a big deal, I would say definitely just start Deadeye. Like it's barely any difference, and you just get a bunch more damage, and you get to keep this energy, and you don't need to respec anything later on. So that's my small little take on that, if you're curious. For gem setups, so currently I'm running some auras. So I'm running a Grace, a Herald of Ice, a Hatred, and an Alliance Support. So these are the three main auras, alongside a Precision, which I believe I have in here. Yep. So Precision, Grace, Herald of Ice, and Hatred. What I could do if I wanted a more well-rounded build is replace Herald of Ice with Determination, and then run maybe like instead of maybe the Silver Flask, you could run like a Granite or something. This would give you quite a substantial bit of armor. This is fine. I've tried this out. It makes you a bit tankier, and it's certainly not terrible. However, I've sort of conceded that even if when you do run that, you're still pretty squishy. Like, you're certainly not immortal or anything. And so I figured, why not just commit to being a slightly squishier and just have a really sort of zoomy playstyle? And I'm sort of just committed to being a softcore bow player at this point. It farms these maps really quickly, and that's really nice. Again, you get the occasional death, but it's really not that big of a deal. So those are the ones I run for now. I just really like Herald of Ice as well. It makes mapping feel a lot nicer. There's so few leagues, right? You know, where I give myself the pleasure of playing with Herald of Ice. I usually replace it with a slightly more powerful, like Herald of Ice on its own just isn't that strong of an effect. It just feels really good. But I figured in this league, since we are full fucking softcore bow mode, might as well give myself the pleasure of playing with the Herald of Ice. So yeah, I'm quite enjoying that. That's a fun aura to be sure. Otherwise, we are running, as almost all bow users are now, we are running a Mana Forged Arrow setup. It's very nice. You get free Frenzy charges with Frenzy, and then you use Power Charge on crits to get free Power Charges. It's extremely reliable. It's not like an on-kill thing. You get basically permanently maxed Frenzied and maxed Power Charges, even on a single target. It's certainly worth the 3 links it takes up in your gear, and I've been very impressed with it. Otherwise, I'm using Steel Skin as the main defensive, sort of our main guard skill. Again, Molten Shell's nerfed this patch, and I'm also not really running any armor on this build right now, so Molten Shell wouldn't be doing as much, so Steel Skin is the second best thing, I think. This also gives us an immunity to bleeding, which obviously is just during this Steel Skin effect, but Steel Skin is up often enough to where I think this alongside a Corrupted Blood Jewel like this one is enough to where I don't notice any problems with bleeding whatsoever. So that's nice. That's a nice one, which means that I don't need to run the bleeding minor Pantheon which is actually this one. I don't need to run this one on this build. I can just run something else, so I'm running the Burning Ground one instead, which is nice. Otherwise, we are also running just Travel Skill and then Marking It with Sniper Mark as our curse. As for the damage, we have Tornado Shot here. There's our main 6-link. It's linked with early damage attacks, Inspiration, Trinity, Vicious Projectiles, and crit damage. You can replace Vicious Projectiles with increased crit strikes if you don't have enough crit chance at the time, but I am plenty good with crit chance considering we have pyro charges and a bunch of crit on the tree and shit, so I did not need that as a part of our 6-link. And Vicious Projectiles gives you more fizz damage, which is good since we do convert our fizz. As for the other 6-link, you're running the classic Ballista Totem setup, so you're running Tornado Shot with Focus Ballista support and multiple totem support, and what's the actual thing called? Ballista Totem support, yeah, and alongside crit damage. So that just gives you extra single target because you can pop down 4 ballistas and they shoot alongside you, and you can shoot 1 billion arrows at the enemy, and it just like super shotguns enemies, which is cool and feels good. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it for sockets. There's some interesting things I want to play around with this build socket-wise, because I would say that eventually we'll scale this build high enough to where Ballista Totems, like already at this point with my gear at my level of DPS, I think Ballista Totems are almost a bit overkill. And what we could do, and I want to see some people do on POE Ninja running this, is you drop the 6-link on your bow, and then you put in, like, there's a lot of stuff you can fit in. So you could fit in a Divine Blessing aura, which would probably be like haste or something if you want damage. That'd be really comfortable. It would also give you access to Vol Haste, which would be cool. I might try that out. You can also run another Mana Forge setup where you run Mana Forge cast on crit, and then run like some curses, and that'll let you double curse something very easily, which would be pretty cool. And it could also let you like frost bomb something for cold exposure. And yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff you could do with the second 6-6, so I'm pretty curious about trying that out. But for now, I actually quite enjoy playing with the Ballista Totems. It feels kind of good to just literally get 1 billion arrows when you plop them down. But yeah, for the socket, I believe that is it. Let's maybe quickly look over the gear. So there's nothing too crazy here. We have Heat Shiver, Tornado Shot Enchant. Tornado Shot Enchant is pretty good. Gives you more guaranteed shotgunning on single targets. It feels pretty nice. This is a very temporary chest. I'm not very happy with this. It's a fine chest. You get the Ailment Avoidance, and you get your Suppression, and you know your Eldritch Impulses are fine. And not very good tiers. Again, I've not really spent much time getting this good. What I really want, and what I think we could do, is maybe run an influenced chest. I'm curious about the tshot on this build because there's a lot of flexibility we have here. So yeah, you could run like an influenced chest to get base crits alongside maybe an additional curse or something. I'm gonna have to play around with this. It's a flexible slot to be sure. I don't like the ones I have here. Like you'd want, instead of Fracture just life, you'd probably want the Gravicious life mod, which gives you % life as well, instead of just flat. Then crafting it normally. Yeah, like it definitely has a lot of room for improvement here. This is definitely the thought I want to, swap out the most. But as for Ailment Avoidance, I am Ailment immune, and the way I'm getting that is through the 30% on the chest. And what people normally do is they run the boots, which would give you another, so you get 100% Ailment immune that way alongside the 20 you get from the unit here. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm doing the 30 off the chest, then I'm getting 50 off of this new jewel here, which is Ancestral Vision, which basically gives you half, not basically, it just gives you half your suppression as Ailment Avoidance. So I have 100% suppression, which gives me 50% Ailment Avoidance from this, so that's 80% with the chest. And then again, these life notes here combined give 20. So those give me Ailment immunity. I'm pretty happy with this. If I ever need this jewel slot for something else, I will consider dropping the jewel and then just doing the standard body armor plus boots setup. But for now, I'm pretty happy with what I've got going on here. So as for the boots, since I was able to not be forced to have Ailment immunity on the boots, I could add another suffix. So we're running a tier 1 just attribute node alongside Chaos Res for our suffixes, alongside spell suppression, of course. And this is, because we're running Omni, so those stats are all good, and I like some Chaos Res. And then we're using some movement speed and some onslaught on kill. I'm currently running a Seal Flask, but I wasn't always doing that, so the onslaught on kill was good before that. Otherwise, Quiver, just pretty bad. I need to upgrade this. Maybe I'll just get a Mirror Tier 1 or something like that. This is very early. I got this like the first few days of the league, and I've just kept it. It's not fantastic, but it has most of the things you want. It's just like a pretty mediocre quiver. We have, I'm running a Mageblood. Again, this is the first thing I farm in this league, as it usually is. I farmed this through just a million Legion Dunes maps. I would not recommend that. That pretty much drove me insane, but we did get it. And I think next day I'm going to have to do something else, because damn, that Legion Dooms farm was painful. But yes, I'm running a Mageblood. With the Mageblood, I'm running a Jade, a Silver, Quicksilver, and a Diamond Flask. Again, not a very defensive flask setup at all. Usually I'm actually pretty not impressed by the Silver Flask, but for now I'm sort of just committed to being very zoomy. So you might see in the future me going more defensive with this build. I as hopefully has been made clear on this channel, I do like more tanky builds, and certainly if I either do a second build this league or I change this build, it's going to be something tanky, or I'm going to make this build more tanky, because I just don't really like being squishy anymore. It feels like you've sort of failed your character when you have just like this stupid glass cannon that falls over. Like, yeah, you can do billions of DPS, but if you just get touched by a mob, you die. Like, that sort of build making I just don't really enjoy anymore. However, I don't know, man. 28 shot, I've tried, for now, I think this is pretty good, especially with Inspired Learnings. Once you get going in a map, you're pretty much just like set. You don't need to think about it. So this build is it's certainly very fun to map with, but I'll maybe look into getting a more defensive setup later on. But yes, so we're doing a Silver Flask with attack speed as a suffix, Jade Flask with the evasion suffix to get our evasion up. Actually, like, I've been thinking about running Lightning Coil as a chest piece, and then doing a bunch of fizz conversion memes to get really tanky. I think that could be a cool experiment that I might look into in the future. But for now, just doing evasion. And then we're doing a Diamond Flask for the crit with reduced curse effect to become curse immune, and that's really nice. For the fifth flask I'm running currently at Progenitus, it's just like a nice little extra defensive layer, keeps us alive. You could run Taste of Hate here. That's the other sort of clear option for a unique flask. Either of those is fine. I've got a Progenitus just because it feels kind of nice to play with. Other gear, gloves are just sort of standard gloves. I rolled good suffixes, so I essenced attack speed with this fracture base until I got the accuracy roll, and then I just veiled chaos until I got the fizz convert roll. I think I could get this much better. I think the prefixes on these gloves are pretty awful. I might try and fix them later on. As for the Eldritch Implicits, I still need to fix them. Again, I see both of this glove pair and the chest pair as just like super temp pieces that I haven't really bothered fixing yet. So I haven't bothered even fixing the Eldritch Implicits. Obviously, there's that chance to intimidate enemies on hits. While Intimidate is very good and we want it somewhere, it's better to getting Rage on here, which is what most people use, and then you just get the attack mastery of nearby enemies are intimidated while you have Rage, and this is especially effective since we're running point blank, so we want to be close to things anyway. But yes, these gloves are what I'm running for now. We have Omni. It's an Omni build. It's pretty good. And for the bow, I crafted this bow as well. I'm pretty happy with it. It's not actually an amazingly rolled bow or anything. So I hit tier 2 Fizz Present when I was essence spamming with the, as you can see, I essence spammed with the flat Fizz essence. I hit the Tyrannical mod there. I then locked prefixes and reforged Fizz and hoped for a good percent roll. I was a lot of essences in at this point, so this was the best I ever got, and I think this is perfectly fine for what I got. So I got those, and then since I didn't have to use a veiled mod on the prefixes, I was able to use one on the suffixes to finish those off. So all I did was I locked prefixes after I did those, did an ashling that guarantees a veiled suffix, and then I unveiled that dex and int attack speed mod, and then just crafted on crit chance. So basically this is with the Crucible passive tree, an 1100 DPS bow, and I think that is pretty cool. 1100 fizz DPS, I should say. As for the Crucible tree itself, we can look at that. So it's not the perfect tree. If I was really clever, I would have crafted the Crucible tree first and then crafted the bow, because that way we could have used a bunch of imprints and split beasts and shit like that to do it. But I was I made this bow fairly early on in the league, like in the first week, and I just didn't know much about Crucible trees, and there wasn't much information available. So it just didn't come to me to do it beforehand, unfortunately. But this is what I managed to salvage from this, doing it post-crafting, which was, it's a lot harder merging a good Crucible tree into a weapon after you crafted it. So if you're doing this league and you want a good weapon, do all the Crucible stuff before you actually make it, before you actually craft it, is my actual advice there. So for the first node, I have a increased global damage mod. This is not the best first mod at all. You want probably a high tier of flat fizz here, or the fizz plus physical converted to cold damage as the first mod. One of those two is probably or probably one of the best ones to get in the first mod here. Second one is the good one. This is the highest tier of the increased attack speed one. This is local increased attack speed, so it's quite strong. It's basically a more multiplier for your damage, so the 50% less global damage is actually not that big of a deal. This is mainly what makes this bow really hit that high P DPS mark, which is cool. Third note, this is a plus 90 to strength mod. That is not a good mod. The actual mod I want here would be the 16% double damage mod if you have like really low strength or something like that. That's the best mod here. Other than that, percent attributes would be better than this as well, like this mod here, which unfortunately is not in the right place. But yeah, this is definitely the weakest part of this tree. But I just don't have the energy in me to change it. So fourth mod, we have the 15% increased explicit fizz and chaos damage modifier magnitudes. This is basically a tempering orb modifier you just get for free on the tree. It's very powerful. It really scales up our bow here, and that alongside the actual tempering orb, a mod that I put on here. Basically I just bought just for fun, I bought a tempering orb and I smashed it onto this thing, and we got that 6% increased fizz modifiers, which is really cool. And then for the final mod, we have the tornado shot mod, which is actually quite nice. You get a free tornado trigger, and if you don't know how tornado shot works with the tornado, basically, first of all, you get the normal tornado stuff, which is it absorbs damage from your projectiles and splash it out to things that are on the tornado, which is nice, a bit of extra damage. But you also mainly chain your projectiles off of the tornado, which lets you shotgun single targets way easier. And while the like positioning of the tornado that spawns with this is a bit iffy sometimes, like sometimes it just goes off and does whatever the fuck it wants, it's still a very good mod at the end here. So yeah, I was very happy to get that. So I'm quite happy with this tree, but I think I'm going to probably either just get a new bow or recraft this one at some point, but I'm really happy with this so far. 1100 PDPS is certainly very, very good, especially for, this early in the league and stuff like that. So that's the bow. Otherwise, rings, just like int attributes. Yeah, there's a Chaos Res ring with some attributes on it. Actually, I got the attributes by essence spamming, and then I locked the prefixes, then I locked the suffixes and veiled chaosed it, and I just hit that tier 1 life mod. So quite happy with that. This ring turned out pretty cool. So this ring, I just got this off of the trade site. It's just a really good res damage ring here. I actually needed this for res because I don't have a ton of Omni. Like I have 1365 Omni, which is like not a ton, so I actually need more help with my resists, and this ring is part of what lets me get res capped. So I just needed a ring with some resist on it. But yeah, that's the gear, and that's the build. We can go and take a quick look at POB if you're curious. So this is the POB. You can see that each tornado shot projectile has 13 million DPS, assuming you freeze the enemy, which I have yet to find an enemy I don't freeze. And so our full DPS, as we have 8 projectiles, is 106 million, assuming we shotgun, which, especially considering we have the tornado weapon mod, which spawns a tornado whenever we fire anything, we get very easy chains, and it's actually quite easy to shotgun, which is nice. So there's a lot of DPS here. Obviously, the defenses are kind of poo-poo, but as I said, it's actually fine for what it is. For the content I'm doing, I'm really not dying that much, and it feels pretty good to play with. But yes, watch this space. I might do something with this. Either tweak this build to become more defensive, because while it is difficult to make bow builds like this super tanky, there's certainly things we could do, and I think I've been toying around with something to that extent, which might be cool in the future. But for now, we're just running this because it's a good mapper, and it has made quite a bit of currency, so that's cool. But yeah, that's our POB. I'll put this in the description as well. There's nothing really crazy here. Yeah, it's a very standard bow build. Like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here or anything. People have been running these builds for a while now. Tornado shot is always popular, so this is indeed what I've been running. As for the progress of the league, made quite a bit of currency. Again, I farmed the Mageblood. It took me I got this like day 4 or 5, I think, which was cool. Otherwise, you can see I have a mirror here. That's pretty cool. Just holding on to that because those go up in value a lot. Otherwise, I've been farming some currency. Again, we're farming apothecaries on Crimson. I think I actually have one still, right? I think I got one. Yes. So in total, I've gotten 4 apothecaries dropped this league. By doing the strategy, I started doing the 8-month strategy. I think it was basically just after I got the Mageblood, maybe a day or 2 after that. So a bit over a week now. So not terrible rates on the Apothecary card. Strategy certainly works, and it's been pretty good to me. Otherwise, a bunch of bubblegum currency and shit, which I've been slowly converting. But yeah, league's going well so far. I'm enjoying it. It's not the best league. I do kind of miss Sanctum. I think Sanctum was a fantastic league, whereas this one seems I like the player power from the weapons. They are cool, but yeah, it's not like I'm not gonna say Crucible's a fantastic league or anything, but it's fine. I think the base game is just really good right now, so that helps carry this league quite hard. But yeah, that's it for this video. Again, nothing crazy here, no revolutionizing build. But who knows? Who knows what happens in the future? You know, I'm gonna keep playing this league. I'm certainly not bored yet, and hopefully you'll stick with me. I do enjoy making videos on this game, and hopefully we can make some more of those as well. If you have any ideas for videos you want to see, post them in the comments below, and I'll happily listen. It's one of the big problems why I don't post super regularly. It's just because I like posting videos where I have something to actually say. And like these update videos are very easy to just do because I just describe stuff I've done. But if you have any things you actually want to see or any requests or anything like that, that would be very helpful, because that usually I eventually run out of ideas for stuff to do. So yeah, post those in the comments below. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching. And yeah, I'll be streaming again. I've started doing that again on Twitch. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link to that in the description. I'm doing that most days in the week. You can check me out. Pretty chill experience, I think, hanging out in that stream. So yeah, hope to see you there. All right. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll be back later.